Today, I am very excited to welcome a very, very talented and a very handsome man with the best beard in the world, because I've got Tim Gallagher tuning in. What are we saying? We're near Manchester, right?
Yeah, well, I was in Manchester for 6 years. I am now, because of COVID, back with my parents, but having said that, in a very fortunate position to be here. So,
well, welcome to the podcast. You're now in COVID world. How have you been holding up then? I mean, moving back with your parents, that can't be easy.
Well, under normal circumstances, no, it wouldn't be easy, but it's in this kind of period we've been in. It's a time for reflection, and I'm very fortunate to be able to, both me and my girlfriend, very fortunate to both come home. We're both from Crewe originally, and kind of live rent-free and reset. As you know, our industry has been absolutely smashed.
Yep.
But I'm planning on going back to Manchester in the next 6 weeks or so.
Well, I've been missing you. It's been a while. And for people listening right now, and for people familiar with the music that has been coming out recently, Tim has collaborated with me on Better Love. I don't want to talk about you in the third person, you're right here, but you are one of the funnest writers to work with. And I'm so glad you've been part of making this next album.
You never told me that when I was in the session. Thank you very much.
It's the beard. The beard brings the power.
What makes me so fun?
You know what? I think I could just listen to your voice forever. And it's no shock to me to see what's happening with your social media right now, because whether you're coming up with melodies that I couldn't dream of in a million years, whether you're like ripping up some Mayer riffs, like just everything that you're doing in the studio is just, it fascinates me. And, you know, Tim was down with us in RAC recently in London when we had that little gap with Corona, didn't we? Where we got a few recording sessions in. And yeah, it's just great vibes every time you're in. And to see what you're doing now, to watch your Instagram profiles, your TikTok profiles kicking off with that voice is really exciting. And I really want to have this conversation for a lot of people listening, and I want to dive into it. I want to dive into you, what your upbringing was into music, and then we're going to talk about what's happening with you on TikTok right now and how that's helping your career. So I don't even know where to start. I mean, how did you even get into music in the first place?
Well, to be honest, thank you, firstly. That was very nice. To be honest, I kind of had no choice, because my family, although on a semi-pro kind of level, we're all involved in music. My mum sings, my dad sings. My dad in particular, I think, was the kind of person that I looked up to and probably influenced me the most in terms of my musical taste. But for as long as I can remember, Mark, I've been singing. I mean, when I say that that is what I've wanted to do since I was 5, and what I've kind of in tunnel vision on doing, legit was since I was 5. That kind of vision has never wavered. So my dad got me into all the old school rock and roll guys, the soul guys. He was in a rock and roll band himself. Did kind of like a Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons tribute. So that's where all the falsetto-y stuff comes from. All the high pitch singing. But yeah, man, just been involved. Even my extended family, you know, they're all big. I've just been heavily surrounded by music, so it feels like it was just a natural progression, I suppose.
I think you can hear it in your vocal though. There's a lot of that old school throwback soul sound to it. Like you say, a lot of falsetto. I don't know how you sing that high, and it's interesting to hear that a lot of your references you would say, I guess, are like really throwing it back.
Yeah, I was brought up on really old school music, and it was only at a later age when I got into pop music, I guess, and into writing, which was probably not as natural as, and the guitar not as natural as my upbringing as a singer. But yeah, I like to think that I maintain them roots in what I do now, and to be honest, that's what I love. Like, if I'm going to go and listen to music, yes, I love current music, I love contemporary pop, I love all kinds of genres, but I just love listening to you know, Stevie Wonders, Luther Vandrosses, the soul guys. When I hear soul in someone's voice, it gets me. So yeah, that's my foundations, I think.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day on a recent episode called Billy Lockett, and we were chatting about whether or not you cringe hearing your own voice. What's your standpoint on that? Surely you
Yes,
can't.
I would.
You
No,
can't cringe.
no,
shit.
Marks. Trust me. There would have been a time when I did, but now I hear it that bloody much. Like I don't listen to myself and think, oh yeah, that's absolutely sick. Like
Yeah.
I'm kind of sick of it. But because I'm so, you remember a time when, I don't know whether you have this now, when you used to listen to your voice back, and everyone gets it, even people that aren't singers, they listen to the voice back and like, oh my god, do I really sound like that? I feel like because of the nature of what we do with. Particularly what I'm doing, recording myself and hearing myself back. You must have heard your own voice back God knows how many times on record and on this podcast and so on and so forth. I'm used to it now. Like I'm familiar with it. So it's just kind of neither here nor there. But I remember recording myself in the studio for the first time when I was like 12 or 13 and hearing it back and being like, that's me. Like being really, people are, aren't they? People are kind of like, do I really sound like that? Whether it's talking or singing. But now I'm just so used to it because every day I'm kind of filming myself and listening to myself back. And
well, that brings me on to what I have seen in terms of your development, because we've known each other a couple of years now, and just your profile is just kind of like taken on a life of its own, because you are filming yourself like every day. It's like that's part of the nature of our job now, isn't it? You are there, whether you're making TikToks and reels and you're doing stories and you're tweeting and you're on Facebook Live and you're doing YouTube stuff and then you're releasing music and you're on Spotify. It's like this absolute onslaught of content 24/7. And I've got to say, you're one of the people, and really that's kind of the main thing around this podcast episode. Like you're one of the people, in my opinion, that is killing it in that game because of the authenticity in your voice. You see so many people coming through these platforms who are like, think, you know, they want to sing or they want to show off some talents and they can rise and fall, but like what's happening in your platforms is down to like massive work ethic of getting these bits of content out, but also like your vocal, and it makes me wonder where you have this heritage concept of music, and like you've got these idols, these legendary icons that have really grafted and they've done those tours and they've gone grassroots all the way through, they've had these epic careers. Having those people as your icons and then coming into our new world where it's like TikTok 15-second videos, like just how is it making you feel? Like how are you dealing mentally with the pressure that is on artists now to be across all of these different platforms?
Well, I caved in with, I'm pretty consistent on socials, but I was very adamant to, I had an opinion of TikTok, and I can almost guess that you had a similar view. I thought it wasn't, I thought it was something that it wasn't. I didn't realize it appealed to all kinds of different content. And, you know, with the algorithm being so refined, it's like you can really find like your niche and your video goes to the right people. Like, for example, I did a D'Angelo song. It literally went to strictly D'Angelo fans, whereas, you know, other forms of social media aren't quite the same. But yeah, it's strange, man. I'm in a position now where, because it's been so long since we performed live, I feel like it's made me forget how to do that. I'm so used to kind of fine tuning and making sure you get perfect takes, and then so now when I do a live performance, for example, I performed a live version of my last single a few months ago, and we recorded it. I wasn't happy with it, and obviously I wasn't happy with it because I didn't have 1,000 takes at it, and the ability to put something out that was like, I suppose it's social media in general, isn't it? That's my issue with it, is that it promotes this perfect take, perfect lifestyle, showing the best side of your life and kind of creating this image that just isn't accurate. And it's the same for me as a vocalist. I'm putting out perfect takes of things, well, as close as I can feel like I can get to perfect, and I'm not happy with anything less. So aside from the positives of all the growth that it's got me and all the things it's done for my career, that is definitely been one of the downsides to it, and it's unhealthy. And I beat myself up about live performances now, and I'm nitpicking on things that aren't perfect. In reality, them imperfections are fine. No one notices it. So yeah, man, I've gone off on a tangent there with the question. I've actually forgotten the actual question, but
you know what? It's a great little rabbit hole to go down, because I definitely feel where you're at there, and it's almost the audio equivalent of like the front cover model thing, isn't it? It's like all of a sudden you're making it normal to see these 15-second window clips of performances that just look impeccable. They're like perfect, and they're graded with color, and they're compressed, and it almost seems to me like when I'm listening to you talk, and you'll be connecting with a lot of people who listen, because there's musicians who listen to this podcast quite a lot. You're really starting to hit the nail on the head, and especially, what's the best way of saying this? Especially you, where you've positioned yourself as a capable vocalist. Do you know what I mean? Like your videos are technically intricate. You're doing very intricate runs. You know, your pitching is very, impressive scales, and it's like, now that you've set that precedence, there's always that bar that if you like fuck something up, or if you do something wrong, then what's going to happen? People are going to be like, oh yeah, and they're going to start giving you shit for it. And then we have this battle of going, well, what do you want? Do you want authentic, or do you want perfect? And what is actually going to be in demand now? And I think what you're hitting on is this unsettling feeling that we're moving away from the organic concept of art, aren't we? It's not like, I remember watching some YouTube video of like the Stones playing like Honky Tonk Women in like Wembley or some shit ages ago, and it was like off key and everything was just fucked. But the vibe on stage was amazing, and I could only imagine of like being there. And that is what I think I feel we're maybe losing.
Yeah, we're missing the energy and the emotion of being present in a room. I've done many a performance, and it's not in an arrogant way where something that happens to have been filmed, and at the time I thought, oh god, the crowd's reaction was great, I absolutely killed it, that was mint, and I've watched it back and I'm like, god, I sound awful.
This is a common thing.
I thought I nailed that.
Mate, that's 100%, because there's something about audio, like when you're in a room and you're actually at a gig and you're listening to that vocalist live, that ambience and the crowd noise and the reverb and the way that it echoes around a room, you're just immersed in it. And it's all about perspective, this shit, isn't it? It's all about the perspective of what point, in what mood, whether it's quiet or whether it's loud, or you got headphones or it's on a phone or whatever. So a performance that you just know was magic, and this is so common, it must be common for musicians or anyone who's performed or spoken publicly. When you know you've got a great energy in the room, it never comes across on camera. It's like trying to take a picture of the moon with your phone, right? Like, that's always a great analogy. It's like, it's never gonna get it, and that's okay. But maybe we're living in a world now where we're looking through the phone screen much more than we're looking at the moon.
Yeah, it's quite, what's frightening is it's becoming kind of more normal to start, I think TikTok is a great example of capturing. I feel like the people that have the best success are the people that can capture moods, capture an aesthetic. So, for example, the things that do better for me on TikTok as opposed to anything that's technically good, maybe some runs or vocal gymnastics, whatever you want to call them. Things that do well for me are things that are emotive and capture. I look back on all the videos that have got better numbers. They all have the running theme is that they're capturing an emotion and people are connecting with that. So I think that if you can manage that to the best of your ability, which you're not going to 100% get, as opposed to being in a room or in a gig, we're never going to quite manage that. But if you can capture a mood, an aesthetic, people connect with that.
And how do you feel it's affecting your career? If you think about your streaming, and if you think about the wider kind of business of Tim Gallagher, for want of a better way of putting it, having now developed quite a following through TikTok, doing your videos and making your content, how do you feel it's actually affecting the grander picture of what you're doing as an artist?
Well, it's this weird funnel TikTok is. I suppose your followers kind of aren't your followers because of the nature of the way the platform's set up. We've had a chat about this in the past, haven't we? People on TikTok scroll through this thing called the For You page. So essentially, like, their main focus is the algorithm putting out content to people that they would like. And secondary to that is your following page, which isn't the first thing that you go on. So people are actually looking at the content that the algorithm's spurting out as opposed to the people that they follow. So the following number's a little bit distorted. So my following, in a sense, hasn't. It's just put a load more eyes on me. A lot more industry people have got in contact, be it labels, managers, so on and so forth. It's helped grow my Instagram. It's helped grow my YouTube, interestingly enough, which kind of caught me off guard a little bit. It's definitely benefited me, not as much as probably what it looks like outside looking in.
I think that's what I'm keen to learn about because, and I'll give reference, like I was talking to another guest on the podcast, Kelvin Jones is a good friend of mine. He's out in Germany. He's like in the charts. He's got like insane streaming numbers. And he was really given a bit of behind the scenes of going, whilst superficially it like looks really impressive and the numbers are so huge, it's like sometimes there is this disconnect. And I'm kind of interested to know that for you, when people are looking at your stuff, it just looks like you're just exploding, and then you just don't really know what's happening behind the scenes and how that actually manifests itself for an artist in their career. And to put it in a different way, I know that there will be people looking at you being like, oh my God, if only I could get the sort of following that Tim Gallagher has, if only I could do this and that, then I would be able to sign a record deal, sell out Wembley Stadium, etc., etc. You know what I mean? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's definitely not what it. Like anyone in any career, once your boundaries go further, you never take stock to look at the progress and look at the numbers and how far you've actually come. You always feel like you're in the same position, right? To an extent. Does that make sense?
Definitely, yeah.
But yeah, Mark, just what was the actual question again?
It's more diving into like how the following on TikTok manifests itself for you and your career and your streaming and what it actually kind of attains, because it's hard to tell, isn't it, with TikTok? Is it a transitional, fleeting thing, or is it a really substantial backbone of what you're doing?
There is residual kind of people off the back of videos that do well, that do come across to Instagram, do invest, do become solid fans. Spotify, the numbers have gone up across all my socials. I've managed to turn my Instagram account initially, when I started off, I came from a position of about 1,500 followers, and I was on a really low point of my career. Kind of coincided with the first session we did. Can't remember when, January 2019.
Must have
maybe?
been, yeah.
Yeah, so I started doing Instagram ads. You froze there. You're back. Okay, cool.
I was probably just really still.
You were, yeah. So I started off by doing Instagram ads, growing that way, investing a lot of money, and with the nature of that, you kind of get bots, you get people who aren't really interested, people that follow you for a follow back. When the ads finish, you then start. So it's like this ascending climb. It's like, oh, I'm getting a couple of hundred followers a day. This video is doing really well. I'll just keep putting loads of money on it. The money stops. The following starts to kind of creep backwards.
It's an addictive game as well, right? Because people start learning how social ads work and they start seeing the results and they're like, well, holy shit, like I can build a career here. But Instagram and Facebook, they know these tricks and they know that it's an addictive process.
What's the goal? What's the goal? Is it, are you doing these ads for the following number? Because I know plenty of friends and people in the industry that have 100, 200,000 followers, but they're skint, their engagement's down. The goal is to get more streaming numbers, to invest in your career so that you can continue to do it financially. The goal is both to reach more people with your music and to benefit financially, as opposed to a number on a follow account, right? That's not what the goal is. But my point being, I managed to. So my Instagram account, although it grew significantly and I got loads of more fans from promotions, when the promotions were off, it was a decline. I was in negative. I would get like 20 followers a day and I would lose 30. TikTok's turned that round and I don't invest anymore. So I'm not spending any money. And now I look at my Instagram and it's, regardless if I post or not, my account is in the green, and it's growing. And that's because of TikTok. So it's kind of turned that tide. I haven't invested in ads since November last year.
When you were losing money, not losing money, when you were losing followers, you said you spent the money in ads, then you stop and then the followers start to decrease. Do you think that's because a lot of them were robotic? Do you think that was just because people were getting bored and actually manually unfollowing? Like, why do you think that slow decline was happening?
Well, I think the people, it's quite, you'll know yourself. I think when you see an ad, you know that you're being marketed to. So I actually think it's quite difficult to get people on board with that. I think the amount of actual organic followers that you get off the back of that is very, very small. You get people that follow for being a botted account. You get people that follow because they want to follow back. You get people that follow but aren't really too invested or that interested. And then you kind of collect a few hardcore fans, which definitely my ad's achieved. I've got people that are still invested in me now. It's like day one since I first started doing that.
Well, I'll bring you in on something that I haven't told you yet, and I haven't really told any people yet, but it's an interesting breakdown in this whole social media thing that's going on. Because, firstly, you're right. TikTok is algorithmically boosting stuff. It's taking, kid in their bedroom doing a cover, putting it in front of millions of people overnight, like bang. And that attraction is what's dripping down the pyramid, so to speak. And like, so many people are realizing the opportunity, and like me and you and like everyone else, they're finding their way to, have a slice of the pie. Do you know what I mean? And I think that the difference is Instagram, where it's so saturated already and the news feeds are so saturated because the user base is so big, it just can't do that. So it's got to like cultivate and it's got to curate the news feed. Whereas TikTok, they're just sitting there like, it's Wild West. If you do something that's good, we're going to boost it like crazy. Now, we had approached. I've actually got Chloe here at the moment, who's helping with the podcast, and she's basically creative director for everything we're doing. And she had an email from a team from Instagram, and this is something that I found really interesting. And if any other musicians have had this, or anyone else who's listening has had this, I would really like to hear from you, because Instagram has basically put a load of these massive funds together, given them to subsidiary like labels and stuff, and asked those labels to source creators with a reasonable following to start using Reels under a set of rules where they can't repurpose the content into TikTok. And to me, I was thinking, wow, like, is that the stage that we're going to get to? It's like now Instagram's realized that TikTok's jumped the gun on them. They realize they're losing people. And now they're paying fortunes to creators to try and get them to use Reels and not use TikTok. And it just seems so backwards to me that this is happening. And we were actually in a position where, I mean, Chloe, do you remember how many bits of content it was? It was like, it was crazy. Like we're talking like 60, 70 bits of content over a couple of weeks, something nuts. We just couldn't commit to it, and we declined the offer out of the fact that
they asked you to to do that.
Yeah. And this is just something that I think, well, is that a taste of what's to come now? Is it going to get to the point where people realize the value of having the creators on the program to the point that they're actually going to end up paying money to get them to use the platform under the rules that they'll be exclusive? It's like, is it one day that Tim Gallagher is going to get an email and they're going to go, okay, we're going to give you this amount of money, but you can only use TikTok and you can't use any other platforms? That would be that's my natural forecast of where I think this is all going.
I think it was very obvious that they were pushing people to Reels. I didn't even need you to tell me that to know that, because my engagement on a Reel, if you notice my Instagram now, I only use Reels pretty much.
Yep.
The engagement on Reels and the amount they push Reels as opposed to a regular post is ridiculous. I think, I maybe get 5,000 to 6,000 views on a regular Instagram post, a video, and 30,000 upwards on Reels. Up to like 80,000. It's crazy.
When you said about how you're realizing what works and what doesn't, I'll tell you what scares me a little bit, right? When I listen to your album, like, you've got some really amazing songs across the record. And from what I'm hearing from you and what I'm hearing from a lot of creators is this convergence into creating stuff that they're figuring out works algorithmically. And it's like, well, where does that lead us as well? Because let's say, for example, you throw back to these legendary icons that you grew up, you listen to, and a lot of these records, there's the big tunes, there's the big hits, and then there's this really incredible depth, this web of other like amazing songs amongst the record, and that's part of that like cohesive connection that you have with an artist. And now, whether it's you, me, if Freddie Mercury was still around, or anyone that you'd want to name, you can clearly see this this boxing in where it's just like, you know that if you now know that if you do the soft acoustic emotional ballad, you know that's going to hit more eyeballs than if you do like a different style of song. And now all of a sudden you're boxing yourself in almost, if you're going to make, which most people would think, the intelligent choice to make creations that are going to give you a career so you can do it and eat, you can survive as an artist.
Yep.
Fast forward this 5 years, can you see yourself being in a very different position?
It's the most frightening part of TikTok is exactly that. Particularly, I don't know, I've not noticed that with Instagram. TikTok kind of pigeonholed me. So the first video that went off for me was this cover of D'Angelo. Like, I just put it up, like, I like the song, right? And then all of a sudden, I was pigeonholed into kind of this R&B guy. And it's not, whereas my roots are from that, and I'm heavily influenced by soul and R&B, I was like, shit, can we swear on this?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's all right. Like, ITV won't drop me or some shit. You're good.
Cool, yeah, Sam. You don't know these days, do you? Yeah, I was like, shit, I'm going to have to keep doing this, and there's only so much of it I can do. And actually, by me doing that, it kind of becomes disingenuous and fake, because I'm doing what I think people want me to do. But I think I don't actually think it's completely true. I think you just have to, I think it's very important when you go on TikTok to just post the content that you want to post and the content that you would perform live, and irrespective of, take the badly performing post on the chin. I'm so guilty of that. I'm like, I'm not posting that because it's only going to get a few hundred likes. So what? A few hundred people have seen it. I didn't promote any of my singles on TikTok because I was like, people aren't gonna connect with it. I'll just hope that they come over to Instagram, and then hope from Instagram they come over to my Spotify or some other funnel to my Spotify. But then, I kind of had a word with myself, and my girlfriend also is like, just put it up. Some people are going to see it. So just post. It's very important to stay true to yourself, and it's very difficult to do that when you're getting a lot of clout from doing one particular thing. It's like, well, keep doing that because, likes, views. That's not the goal. While it's helpful, while it helps you to grow, the goal is, I'm not going to throw TikTok or any social media under the bus, but I don't want to be a TikToker. I don't want to be an Instagram celeb, artist, vocalist, whatever you want to call it. I want to sell out venues, and I want people to come and buy tickets to my shows. I want to be on people's playlists. I want people to listen to my music. And it's easy to get sucked into that kind of social media world.
I'd almost say it's not even getting sucked into. I'd say it's almost become a de facto rule. Because if I unpack what you were just saying, you're like, I want to sell out venues. I want people to listen to me on Spotify. I want people to come to shows. It's like the middleman exposure opportunities are few and far between in the world. Radio, TV, social media, whatever you're going to call it. So if you're interfacing with an exposure opportunity, and it's like, you can go down path A and do Soppy Acoustic Ballad again and reach 2 million people. Or you can do your original organic thing that you stay true to yourself and hit 100 people. You're like, by the factor of thousands, more likely to attain your real world goals by playing that game. And platforms like TikTok, they don't give a shit about whether or not you sell venues. They just want people to stay in the app so they can put advertising in front of them. Mm-hmm. So surely, I
fear TikTok is probably on the verge of that in the next 12 months, I would guess.
In the verge of what, sorry?
Being what? I feel like we're in the honeymoon phase of TikTok, yeah. and I'm guessing. I actually don't know. I hope it isn't the case. But I don't think. Well, all previous social medias have gone that way, haven't they?
There's a natural order of it, and this is something I've looked into a fair bit. And it's like, I always think of it as the content bottleneck. If you have enough content to show on phones, it's like, okay, crack on, put the content on phones. When Facebook started, you probably followed 5 people, and they weren't producing enough content to fill your newsfeed. So your newsfeed was just like, Auntie Margaret's got a new cat and whatever, and it's like, okay. And then social media starts to really understand and go, hold on, if we can get the content that is addictive and we can get clickbait and news and whatever, and we can get marketers coming in and target the right people. And before you know it, I think the last time I looked, it was like 14,000 photos a second or something. It's probably 10 times that now. There's so much content hitting a news feed when a social media platform reaches maturity, because you're right, we are in the honeymoon phase of TikTok. They will soon get to the point where there's a complete bottleneck crunching. And that is the point where the only way for it to move forward is to take all of the bottlenecked content and rank order it from most likely to keep people in the platform to least likely to, and then that's it, and then off you go.
It will be monetized. I mean, maybe it'll be an anomaly, and they won't go down that route because
it won't, because that's just the nature of supply and demand in business.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so too. But it's very unique in the sense that you can have an account with 0 followers, and you can have an account with 2 and 3 million followers, and essentially they're not quite at the same starting position, but it's not far off. My content can get way more views than someone with 5 and 6 million. Everyone's competing. It's a level playing field. It's a level playing field. So there's definitely pros and cons to it, but that is what is so fascinating about TikTok.
Do you think that's how, now you've said that, a little light's gone on in my brain? Do you think that is the move that has outmaneuvered Instagram? Is because they've just said, you know what, this could be your very first post and it doesn't matter?
Think about your Instagram news feed. Everything is either an influencer promoting something. Everyone's promoting something, and it's very obvious. We're all being marketed to, right? And I think that's why my Instagram account was in the red, because my strategy was pay Instagram to put my stuff in front of people. But the caveat with that is that it will say sponsored on the post, so people know that they're being marketed to, and people don't like that. So that's why I think that I was losing the followers. Now with TikTok, it's organic. It's organic. People don't think they're being marketed to. People are just seeing me play my guitar and sit and sing a song, and people are like, I like that, I'm going to follow him. So Instagram now, my point being, is that it's just this big commercial shit show where the average person has been cast aside and everyone is just market. It's all fancy, videos edited, nice pictures, perfect. It's just... And
when we do a podcast in a year's time, we'll probably be saying exactly the same about where TikTok's going. But this is the point of what I wanted to dive into. We had a really interesting chat the other day, and I wonder what your forecast is. Like, tell people about your strategy and how you're looking at this and how you're hoping it's going to get you to the next stage in your career.
Well, I think the last couple of years for me, where I've noticed the most growth, has been a case of just doing it, just jumping on the platform and doing it and figuring it out as you go. The biggest lesson that TikTok has taught me, it's done wonders for me, but I was on it late, and we're still in the honeymoon phase, right? But the biggest lesson it's taught me is that when something comes up, get on it. When an opportunity comes up, an app is in its infancy, in that honeymoon phase where organic growth is really, the ceiling for that is very high. Jump on it, just do it. Don't care what people think about you. Don't care what your friends think about you. Essentially, they don't give a shit. Jump on the next bandwagon. If it's not a bandwagon, what have you lost? You know, the potential for growth on... Hey, and you see it with the old school Instagrammers back in the day, right? My friend, a guy called Chris Liggett, an amazing guitar player, we worked together quite a lot. He built up best part of a 20,000 following on Instagram, which is pretty solid for just a guitar player, by just doing what I'm doing on TikTok now. Difference is, he was on it in 2014, 2015, where you would hashtag it and people would... You remember you would hashtag on Instagram and you would post and you would get like 50 likes in a second.
Yeah.
Because it would go through, it would travel. Whereas now, you know, they took out posts being in chronological order. I feel like I think that was the end of it. And then algorithms came in.
Do you struggle to keep up though? Do you find the pressure? Like, how do you handle it mentally? You need to be everywhere. How do you handle scheduling your time, doing all of these videos, posting daily on multiple platforms? How do you cope?
Well, I'm just doing it, Mark. I'm just kind of, I'm figuring it out as I go along. Yes, there's a loose structure to it, but I'm not rigid in my days. I'm not rigid in my way of thinking. I'm just, you know, I try to record pretty much every day. Sometimes I won't record. Sometimes I will. I try to post every day on TikTok, every couple of days on Instagram. But if I'm not feeling up to it, I'll take the day off. It is draining. It is mentally draining. But don't. If you build it up to be this big thing and you think, oh, well, I've got so far to go, I've got so much to do, how am I going to do this, how am I going to do that? Every day I've got to... Just dive in, take it each day, do what you can, and wing it. Figure it out as you go. It's a damn sight better than not doing it. Do you know what I mean? And it's a damn sight better than I've had the feeling where I'm totally... stale. I was stagnant. I'd avoided posting on Instagram, and I remember that feeling of looking at other people doing well and thinking, how have they got there? How have they built this following? Why haven't I got that? And it's because I wasn't active. So just start, just do it, and just be consistent. Make a commitment to yourself to be consistent. Take time off if you need to take time off. We all take time off. I've had, in this last couple of years, periods where I've really struggled and taken a week and a couple of weeks off.
When you say you've really struggled, in what sense? Just the workload, like mentally, like what do you mean?
Different things with the pandemic, with loss in the family. Unfortunately, that was when I took a couple of weeks off. But different challenges come up. Being pigeonholed into a genre. It's all kinds of different things just pop up along the way. But
is that something that affects you? In does it feel like in some way kind of a threat to be like pigeonholed, and to feel like if you now do something that's different to what most people like, they're going to somehow not have that same support? Or
I don't think it's actually being pigeonholed. I think it was that I'd been pigeonholed into something that I thought wasn't me, and then me continuing to not be me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to not have to be me. That's the least fulfilling thing I can possibly think of.
It makes me think of an interesting question, and I've asked this to a couple of creatives that I know. Given the fact that all of this pressure to be on many platforms, to dedicate good time to make good content for, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, whatever, what do you think would be better between binning all of that off and just focusing every day in just writing original music?
No, forget it. Forget it, you can't. You can't do that. I think you know that as well. You cannot do that.
I mean, it's tough. A little while ago, I had a mentor who did exactly that, and my first album was the birth of nearly a 2-year period where I was given the very simple directive to do nothing. And bear in mind that I had a project back then, all cancelled, all tours pulled, everything stopped. And it was when the COVID project was going to be starting, and it was like, you're doing nothing apart from writing songs every single day. And that was my job, was to create demos, basic demos, send them.
What year was that?
Jesus, I'm trying to remember. I mean, 2016, probably.
Do you think the advice would be the same now? Because that's 5 years. Lots changed.
I know, but put it this way. After that period, there was like 300, 400 songs. There was so many. And the massive majority of them were absolutely wank. Like, they really were. They were just shit. Then the 20% were like reasonable. And off the 20%, it was like we made 10. And then we made Running Underwater. Still not a hit record. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm releasing independently, but like still... There's a couple of songs there that I just genuinely feel in my gut are really strong, but it's still not a record that would compete with like the top of the fucking Billboard charts or whatever. But the main question that I keep thinking of in my head is, let's say that Tim Gallagher says, I'm not going to do any of this social media game. I'm not going to play any of it. I'm just going to spend the next 2 years writing every day. And then at the end of that 2 years, you do have a hit. You do write This City by Sam Fisher, or you do write Sorry Not Sorry, Demi Lovato, or you do write a Taylor, just whatever the example you want to give. How do you think that changes? Because focusing on your original art to that level and then dropping a song that influencers like me and you would want to cover, and the Sam Fisher thing's a great example. If you create a purely genius song like This City is. You got people like me and you queuing up on TikTok, wanting to cover it, spreading that original concept to our thousands of followers, and that's dripping to other thousands of followers. And that potentially is a complete like antidote potentially to what me and you and thousands of others get sucked into.
I think a couple of things on that. Do you think The City is a great example? I'll talk more about that. Do you think if a hit song, and I mean, let's say I've got a song now and it's a hit, like if it's marketed properly through a label, if Ed Sheeran releases it, it's number one for 12 weeks, right? Let's say I've got that song. Hopefully I have somewhere. Do you think that me being in the position I'm at, if I put that out, do you think that can go and be that song independently?
Now more than ever.
You really believe that?
Yes, and
do you think you, because I might not be 100% accurate on the Sam Fisher song, but that became a huge song, right? That was taken down, and it was released through a label, and I think it was around about 2017 when my friend showed me that song, and I was like, God, this is an amazing song, but it kind of did the numbers that you've done. In fact, I think, which is great, by the way, I think it's done less numbers than some of your better performing songs at that time.
Okay.
And then this label, it seems like this label come on board, took that great song and give it everything it needed to be a huge song. But it wasn't going to get there.
Yes. Now,
by the way, if someone wants to correct me on that, I might not be 100% like factual on that, but I think you're spot on. I mean, as you know, I've got a foot plugged into the industry for a lot of reasons, and I think that you can take many artists. I wouldn't really want to drag that Zoe Wees into this, but I probably would, because I think part of her campaign, she wrote that song Control. It's like just one of the best songs written in a long time, and my mate Renee Miller wrote that with her. And I remember it's like they had the song, it was just a smash, it's just a big song. But there is the method of upscaling. It's like if you're an independent, you drop it on Spotify and it's like, well, hold on, the save rate on this song's amazing. It's an amazing song. And it might not necessarily do crazy numbers, but you can see the ratio of listeners and engagements, like there's really something going on here. It works,
and I do think
totally.
I do think that whether you look at This City or Control by Zoe Wees, or you do look at these songs, they will share and spread, and they'll have a really long tail of slowly growing. But I think the difference is if a label isolates that, if a Columbia or a Polydor or whatever comes along and goes, right, we can see that this is doing what we need a song to do if it's a hit, they just have that unbeatable power to implement press, radio, TV, online strategies with their teams, with boots on the ground to talk to people in TV. Like, they have this massive infrastructural thing that you can't just replicate through TikTok and no. digital algorithms. So with This City, I think, and this is a long way of answering your question, because if your question is, if me as Tim Gallagher has a genuine hit song in my pocket, would I release it independently, and would it be a hit? I do think it would. And Olivia Rodriguez is a bad example because I know she was Disney and whatever, but like Driving License is just an incredible song. It almost doesn't matter who you are. If you listen to it, you're like, wow, that's amazing. Now, I believe that she still has that distributed through her own independent label. And again, I could be wrong. I don't know the facts, but I do believe that nowadays there's no reason why you couldn't drop an original chorus of a song. TikTok could explode because they love it, and people share it, and people start going crazy, and your Spotify numbers go up. And because Spotify sees that you're driving good engagement to your profile, Spotify boosts it in the algorithms, because it's like, this is going to keep people listening to Spotify because it's Tim Gallagher song's a hit. And this power dynamic is morphing, and there's this strange opportunity. Instagram are all of a sudden going, well, we need people in our platform. So if there's a bit of content that he's put on Instagram that we can boost to compete against TikTok, and before you know it, the actual creation becomes the only thing that has some intrinsic value. So I think that now we're finally at a point where technology is leveling up and going, holy shit, like we can think about art a bit differently now, and the power that it has. And that's my really long-winded answer that could be totally wrong, but that's my best shot.
No, I think there's a lot right within that. I just believe that it can do well to a point. And then there's the very few exceptions, like the two people you just mentioned. Is it Olivia Rodrigo and what Zoe? I've heard. Did Zoe Weezy's song blow up through TikTok, or did that blow up just by?
I think it was just a great song. I remember. I'm trying to replay it back. I mean, I should do a podcast with Renee, and I'll get him on, and I'll ask him to explain that one, because I remember he wrote it, and it was like, I've written a fucking hit, and it was like, well, that is massive. And then before you knew it, it was doing quite well on Spotify, and the algorithms were picking it up, and then. I remember like the BBC synced it on something. I was sitting here watching TV and I heard Zoe Weezy's Control, and then the positive feedback loop began for her, and it was just a great song, and everyone wanted a piece of it.
Yeah. So my opinion would be very, very, very few exceptions can do it. There's anomalies in everything, right?
But also very, very few truly great pieces of art.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be a ridiculous world if there was loads. But I think there's a lot that will go under the radar and won't get to the potential that they actually have without that big machine behind them. So they're coming back to the original point of, do you think you can focus on just... Also, right, if you have just a hit, again, is that... I mean, depending on what level it is that the goal? I would argue no. Like, we want a listenership throughout all of our songs, and people to come to shows, and longevity in the music industry, and a music career, not just something that went viral on TikTok and got 4 or 5 million Spotify streams. As great as that sounds, that's not going to sustain you for the rest of your life.
I definitely see your point there, and the way I think about it is like, if we imagine it as a spectrum from 0 to 10, the game in a way is to create like art, to create 3 minutes of audio that actually resonates and connects with someone, like big or small. And then on that sliding scale, there's from 0 you're going up, and then at some point you hit, I can pay rent now. And then there's the point of going, I can actually now be a musician and actually do this as a job because enough people enjoy what I'm doing to support what I'm doing. Then it goes right up to creating something so great that the whole world stops and takes note. And it probably sounds a bit like probably sounds a bit self-indulgent and greedy, but like, I've always aimed to try and create something like that. My dream as a musician has always been, I would love to make a song that just captivates the world's attention. That excites me, and I'm always fascinated when I see people in my circles, Zoe being a great example, Sam Fisher being a great example, and you watch them and you go, holy shit, like, that's so cool. You've made that song and it's brilliant, and the whole world actually respects you for it. And my friend Kelvin's another great example where he's just made some absolutely brilliant songs, and yeah, that is my aiming. That's my dartboard, I guess.
I think that's how it should be, because very few people achieve that, but absolutely everyone that doesn't aim for that doesn't achieve it.
Exactly. I mean, mate, I'm a million miles from achieving it, but I'm very, very lucky. I'm very lucky that with the songs
you're potentially not. And I think from when I first met you, it's obviously different when you get to know someone, and now I feel like you're a friend, and but I remember my first impression of you being, firstly, in the session, like, I learned a lot songwriting. I find it very interesting. The guy that you went in a session with, and he told me some of his methods and how that had rubbed off. And I found the whole writing session very educational for me, and I took a lot from it, believe it or not. And you wouldn't have known that. But also the fact that you got very solid streaming numbers, and you'd had a cut on FIFA. It's probably a case of you being you and not being able to see the bigger picture and the progression. And actually, there's a very, 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 very few number of people that achieve where you are even right now.
And I do take that very seriously. And I've had very deep discussions with a good friend of mine called Gareth Emery, who's played the biggest festivals and arenas around the world. And it's like, and he taught me that lesson very sternly, because as I'm sure, and I always have to be completely honest in these podcasts, because the point of doing this isn't to pretend I'm something I'm not. It's like, I absolutely am criminal of always wanting more. I always want to do bigger venues.
You have to do that, though, Mark.
Bigger venues, bigger numbers. And it's like, no. It's like, if you don't sit down and meditate on the things that you have done and achieved, it's like you're never going to be happy. And thank God I had those brutal conversations. This was like years ago, and I was out in LA, and I was having a time of my life and all these writing sessions and stuff like that. And I was going to write a hit, and I was going to do this. And this guy like really leveled me down. It was like, it's exactly like you said. It's like, just realize what you've got. And especially with the fan base that I have and the things that I'm doing with all the platforms out there, I have such a huge sense of gratitude for everything, and it is nice to be reminded of that. So
I see that though. It's not that I think, it's more of a reflect and be proud of what you've achieved, because actually what you've achieved, thousands and thousands and thousands of musicians would be the pinnacle of the success. Like they would love to say that would be, you are living and have lived a lot of musicians' dreams, you know, particularly as an independent musician and the things that you've achieved, but always wanting more. You have to, because what's the goal with that? You reflect and think, oh my God, that's amazing. I had an amazing career.
Well, like, put it this way,
I'll just chill out now.
Likewise to you, like having, and again, it sounds terrible to keep going back to social media, but like the following that you've developed, I've been in awe of it, and I've been inspired to be like, I'm going to get on that platform as well and compete, because it's great to see where you are, and loads of people are going to be looking at you going, that you've made it, like, because that's how it feels like. You look at your profile, you've just got, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people on there interacting with you on a daily basis, and
it's very strange, isn't it?
It is very strange, and do you take stock, and do you realise that what you're doing and take those moments?
Not enough, no, not enough. But also, it's a case of, you know, if I need to take stock when I start to beat myself up. Right, you know, that's when I need to take stock and be proud of what I've achieved. But if we don't keep wanting more, then we'll never grow.
So what does more look like for you? Like, if you could start to pack up what you want to try and achieve in, say, the next 2 to 3 years, what are you?
Well, I can't speak for you, but I think we're probably in a similar position as the reason why we did that is because we wanted to be musicians, working musicians. Successful working musicians with a career in the music industry in whatever regard for a period of time or my life. I want to do music for the rest of my life. Maybe when I'm 40, 50, 60, maybe I'll go into teaching or something else, but I want to be involved and be a working musician for the rest of my life. That's the goal, not numbers on TikTok and Instagram, albeit they help and they are helping enormously. And them tools are very useful, and every musician should be using them. I also think, coming back to what we were talking about before with saying just go away for 2 years and write, or
the hit
be
song
on social
paradox,
media.
yeah.
I feel like I actually feel like now I'm in the routine with it, with content. It's not a chore. It's kind of like going to the gym. It's kind of like eating at a certain time every day. It's a routine. So it's not really taking. Don't get me wrong. Like, sometimes I do multiple takes and I need to let things go, but it's not stealing me of my energy. Like, I can write, and I am in a period now, particularly in the lockdown, where I've just been like, right, this next couple of months, I'm just write, getting a bunch of songs, getting ahead of myself, but I'm still putting the content out. So I think you can do both once you get in the routine of it.
If you've got the work ethic and the ability to kind of distinguish with that. So, I mean, tell me what have you got on the horizon though? What are you working on now, and what's coming up for Tim Gallagher? Like, what's happening in your spheres?
Well, I was releasing a song on the first Friday of every month since July.
That's a big commitment.
It's a big commitment, and I was running it till the end of this year, and I released.
Have you derailed it already?
I'm out, Mark. I've gone. I've bottled it. I've choked. No, there's very good reason behind it, and I'll tell you for why. Yeah, I put a single out first Friday of every month. Then in December, I put out an album as like a thank you, which is like the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. Like, I could have thanked people in other ways than doing a 13-track album and like completely setting myself back God knows how many months. But no, I put that out, continued to run it this year. And everything that has happened through TikTok, it kind of segues back into what we were talking about before. I've now started to have conversations with, so I'm in the process of rebuilding the team of people around me, and I'm having conversations with people in the industry.
When you say conversations, you're talking record deals here.
Well, record deals, management, influential people within the industry. I've put myself in a fortunate enough position where then people are interested, and I think will be on board with me releasing music in the future. So for now, this might not all transpire. We know what it's like. Things can fall apart. Things could fall apart. But I think that's going to happen. So I have a load of songs that I'm now going to release. We're going to re-strategize and release from a team. It's not going to be a case of I can't do the songs. I've done it. I've put the work in. Like they're there. It's about giving them songs the best opportunity, re-strategizing with a new team, and just giving them the best. I feel like I'm at a little bit of, it's come at the perfect time. I feel like I'm at a little bit of a roadblock. I think that song a month has served its purpose. It's done everything that it needed to do for me to now. And, you know, I've got 27 songs on Spotify. I think 21 or 22 of them have been released since July.
Wow.
So there's plenty for people to dig into. If new fans come on board, it's not as if it's a stale place. Like there's plenty of fresh things to
sink your teeth
people
into.
can listen to until I release again. Yeah, so it's definitely served its purpose. And then hopefully going forward, these songs are marketed in a way and given their best chance of success.
Well, mate,
but we'll see.
I mean, we will see, because my plan is we'll do this again down the line, and I know that for people listening to this podcast are going to really appreciate like being able to get that insight from you and what's happening behind the scenes. And as you build this new team, as we do look back on our hit song Paradox, it will hit a little bit down the line. I just wanted to say thank you for being a part of this and coming on board with this. I'm sure I'm going to see you in a writing room very soon. But yeah, it's been great having you on, and let's see where all of this goes.
No, you're welcome, man. It's been fun. I felt like I waffled a little bit, but hopefully there's something of some value that I said somewhere within this.
Right, podcast.
How long have we been on for?
Podcasts
An hour?
are all about waffling, aren't they? Yeah, we have indeed. All right, well, dude, take care.
Nice one, mate. I'll catch you soon.